particularly for today's text. Mary went to where Jesus was. Then as soon as she saw him, she knelt at his feet and said, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw that Mary and the people with her were crying, he was terribly upset and asked, "Where have you put his body?" They replied, "Lord, come and you will see." Jesus started crying, and the people said, "See how much he loved Lazarus." Some of them said, "He gives sight to the blind. Why then couldn't he have kept Lazarus from dying?" Jesus was still terribly upset, and so he went to the tomb, which was a cave with a stone rolled up to the entrance. He then told the people to roll the stone away, but Martha said, "Lord, you know that Lazarus has been dead for 4 days and there will be a bad smell." Jesus replied, "Didn't I tell you that if you had faith, you would see the glory of God?" After the stone had been rolled aside, Jesus looked up heavenward and prayed, "Father, I thank you for answering my prayer. I know that you always answer my prayers, but I said this so that the people here would believe that you sent me." And when Jesus finished praying, he shouted, "Lazarus, come out." The man who had been dead came out. His hands and feet were wrapped with strips of burial cloth, and a cloth covered his face. Then Jesus told the people, "Untie him and let him go." This is the gospel of the Lord. So today is All Saints' Day. All Saints' Day is often the time that we consider those who have gone home to their Lord, those who have died in the faith. I want to challenge today our notion of what a saint is, or what a saint is meant to be. But first, I do want to recognize that those who have died are saints. Those who have gone on home to the Lord have been claimed in their baptismal promises and have brought into the mansion that God prepares a room for each one of us in. But saints are also living people. And so I invite for you today, if you would take a look in here. What do you see? Your reflection. You see yourself. What's that?
I see Gina.
You see Gina. That playing of the angles. Some people this morning kind of jumped back and said, "Oh, I see a horror show," or something of that nature. I think I was one of them. But what I'm inviting you to see is, do you see members of your family? Have you been told you look like someone in your family? Do you see perhaps your mother or father or aunt or uncle or grandparent? Do you see their reflection, and hopefully not just the physical reflections, but do you see and know them to live in and through you? That some part of who you are is a legacy of who they were. And you are strengthened in your life and faith by that reflection of them. I put the mirror here behind the baptismal font because there is an additional reflection that we are invited and called upon to see, particularly on this All Saints' Day, in that mirror. Besides seeing the backside of me, we are called to see God. We are children of God, born through the waters, reborn through the waters of baptism. And so we are God's family. We see God as part of who we are, and we know that God is a part of us. We are created and made in God's image. And so on this day, when we think about the story we just heard of Jesus going to the graveside of his friend Lazarus and weeping, Jesus, however, has the long view that we often don't have, that Lazarus lives again. Because as a child of God, his promises in his baptism were to be raised again. Jesus knows that at that moment in time, he will raise Lazarus, and Lazarus will live again so that others see the power and the glory of God in their time and in their day. But they also know, and Jesus also knows, that Lazarus will surely die. It is a part of our human condition. But it is not the end. Because when we look in this mirror and we see God and know that we in our baptisms are children of God, we too can claim the power of the resurrection for our own life. And then that means for us on All Saints' Day that it is not just about the past, it is about our present. For the very power of the resurrection reminds us that we are people who live as saints today. Martin Luther described it this way, that people of God are both saint and sinner. That we are sinners by our humanity, that we have fallen from grace, but that we also are sinners who have been forgiven by God. And thereby we are also saints. We are saints by the grace of God, living in God's love and grace, overshadowing all we don't do and all that we do that breaks us away from God. But every day, we have the opportunity to remember that reflection of God in us, the power of God in us. Through our baptisms, we wash away those sins. We wash away the things we left undone. We wash away the transgressions where we've broken relationship with God or others. We are healed. Now, as a human being, I know for myself that it is not just a daily thing, it's a moment-by-moment thing for me to need to reclaim those powers of my baptism. Asking God for forgiveness and to be empowered with the wholeness that comes through the cleanliness, through the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. But it is then again in that moment that I can walk again in confidence and faith as a resurrected person in the here and now. And we are called into that resurrection, the communion of saints, as we say in the Apostles' Creed, so that we remember that power resurrection power is not something that happens after we die. It is for the here and for the now. It gives us the opportunity to not just reflect God's glory when we die, but to reflect it in all we say and do here. With those who are in our families, with those who are in our neighborhoods and our friends, and even with those we might dare to call enemy. We are to be the very reflection of God. And so we live as saints, and we die as saints when we go home to claim the promises of our baptisms. We remember today the people that have gone on that journey ahead of us because we stand on their shoulders, empowered by the lives they led and the things that they taught us, that then we can in turn teach others, strengthening their faith, sharing and reflecting the love of God in the way we live, whether it be through a hug or a smile, or the kind thing we do for another, or perhaps even the way this week we vote by living out our citizenship, no matter what choices we make. But we are asked to reflect upon that power of the living God in our lives, so that in all we do, we reflect our Lord and His living, abundant life in and through us. I hope and pray that you are with me and that you think today and reflect on those who have gone before you, who have helped make you who you are. But that you also remember the reflection in the water, that you are a child of God, loved and redeemed, and even more than that, empowered to live a blessed and resurrection life. Amen.